Hey kix-mix, welcome back to our channel. Today I am going to be doing things a little bit differently because I won't be vlogging or having my family in this video or anything, and the reason is because I am going to answer a question that I get all the time, especially now that I'm pregnant. Whenever somebody finds out that I am doing a home birth, the first reaction that I get without fail is, "Oh my gosh, you are so brave. I don't know how you do it." And my response every time, I kind of chuckle because I think the same thing about hospital births. I think, oh my gosh, you're so brave. I couldn't do it. And then the next reaction is always, okay, why do you do home births? So today I wanted to share reasons why I personally choose to do a home birth. And I just wanted to give a couple disclaimers before we get into this. The first disclaimer is I am not a medical professional in any way, shape, or form. So anything that I tell you is just based off of my personal experience and things that I've studied up on. So anything that you hear from me, make sure that you do your own research. So my second disclaimer is that I totally understand that there are tons of women who are not physically able to have a home birth because they have predetermined complications that could arise where they need to be at a hospital because they are already at a higher risk. So let's get into it. So reason number one, I prefer to use a certified nurse midwife over an OBGYN. And the reason being is because a regular OBGYN is trained with all of the regulations of the hospital, that you're supposed to do things a certain way, and a midwife, they became a midwife because birth is their passion. They love it. They go in learning and understanding what a woman's body is supposed to do, and they're just really able to guide you through the birth process and help you do it in a way that you know that you're safe. They don't try to intervene in ways that are unnecessary, and I just feel like they are way more educated on childbirth and what a woman's body can do. Also, when you're using a midwife outside of the hospital, they are able to do things their way as opposed to being forced to do certain procedures that are required in a hospital or procedures that are just standard practices in a hospital. Reason number two is there are no interventions that can be used unnecessarily. So when you go to a hospital, oftentimes, you immediately get hooked up to an IV, you're confined to a bed, and when your labor isn't progressing, then they'll put you on Pitocin, and then the Pitocin stresses out the baby, and then just one thing after another happens where the baby ends up being under stress, and it puts you in a much more dangerous situation, whereas if you never use those interventions to begin with, you would be in a much better situation. The third reason is you are allowed to eat during labor when you're at home. So as you've seen in my previous videos, I talked about the food that I ate when I was in labor with Layla, and it's totally encouraged. When you're having a home birth, you are encouraged to have healthy snacks and drinks with electrolytes in them, and lots of water and juice and fruit and whatever is going to give your body the energy that you need to continue through with labor. Labor is a huge task for a woman's body, and I can't imagine being in the hospital starting labor and then being told, oh, you can only eat ice chips, and we'll put some flavoring in the ice chips to make it more enjoyable. I cannot even imagine that. So you get to eat if you're having home birth because you're not being regulated by the rules of the hospital that say you're not allowed to eat during labor. The fourth reason is the safety and comfort of being at your own home to give birth. You know, you just feel safe in your own home. You feel comfortable in your own home. And when you feel safe and comfortable, your oxytocin is able to continue to increase so that it can allow your body to progress in labor and do exactly what it's supposed to do. I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of different women who say, yeah, I was having all these contractions, and as soon as I got to the hospital, they literally stopped. And so I had to go back home. And the reason why that's such a common thing to happen is because once you get to a hospital, you're in a cold, unfamiliar environment, and that starts to release adrenaline. And adrenaline stops the ability for your body to produce oxytocin. So oxytocin is the hormone that progresses labor. Adrenaline will totally stop labor. So if you're in an environment where it's unfamiliar, you have all these bright lights, it's cold, the floors are cold, the bed is uncomfortable, it doesn't help with the natural process of what your body is trying to do, which is bring a baby into this world. Reason number 5 is that at home, you don't have the option for an epidural. So with Titus, I did a birth center birth, so I didn't do it at my own house, but I did it at the birth center, so everything medically is the same. And my birth with Titus was so painful because he was posterior and I didn't prepare properly prior to his birth to prevent that. And so all of the labor was in my back, and my labor lasted a lot longer than it would have if he wasn't posterior. And at one point I was begging for an epidural, and if I was in a hospital, I totally would have taken it. And I'm so glad that I wasn't in a hospital and didn't have that option, because everything turned out good and I was able to give birth to him naturally, and my recovery was so amazing and easy and simple because I didn't have an epidural. And so the fact that I don't have that option at home is helpful for me. The 6th reason is that it is stress-free. I can't imagine starting labor and then feeling like I had to pack all my bags and rush over to a hospital. I love the fact that I can just be at my house, not worry about going anywhere, get in my comfortable clothes. I don't have to put on a gown that 100 other women have worn to give birth in. I can just relax, be in my own house. I don't have to go anywhere, and all I have to worry about is texting my midwife to keep her updated, and then she'll come to me and help facilitate the birth. The 7th reason is because birth is done your way. If you want to give birth in a birthing pool, you can do it. If you want to give birth on your hands and knees, you can do it. If you want to give birth on your side, if you want to lay in your bed, if you want to do it standing up, you can literally birth however you want. You just don't have to worry about putting your foot down to have your birth plan turn out the way that you want it, because your midwife is in full support. You don't have to worry about something happening that you didn't want a part of your birth plan because you were too exhausted to, you know, voice your opinion or even care at that point. It's just done your way from the beginning. The 8th reason I prefer to do a home birth is because at home you get to keep your baby the whole time. Your baby is never taken away from you. So in a hospital, the standard practice is, you know, you give birth to your baby, you get to do skin to skin for a few minutes, and then they take your baby away to do measurements and tests. And I've heard so many stories where the baby is gone for like 2 hours before you even get to, you know, have your baby back and cuddle and bond and get to know them. So at home, you never get your baby taken away from you. Your baby is with you from the second that they come out of your body. You just have that immediate bonding, and that never gets broken. The 9th reason is nursing. So I have heard of so many moms who have trouble nursing their babies from the get-go because in the hospital, the nurses will automatically offer formula for your baby, or if the baby hasn't latched on after a certain amount of time, then you know they're encouraging you to go ahead and give the baby formula because they tell you that the baby needs it, and you know it creates that feeling of panic, like, oh my gosh, I need to feed my baby. So with Titus, he actually didn't latch on for 8 hours after I gave birth, and that was totally fine because he wasn't hungry. He was 2 weeks overdue. He had plenty of chunkiness and fat to feed himself for those first 8 hours, and when he was ready, he latched on, and I didn't have to worry about anybody forcing formula on him or making me feel like he was gonna starve to death or anything. Now, once again, I understand that there's some women who have tried everything and they still have problems producing milk, but there's also a lot of women who, if they didn't have formula fed to their baby in the beginning, then their body would naturally be producing what the baby needs. Nursing is all about supply and demand, and if there's no demand, the supply isn't created. The 10th reason, and this is a beneficial reason for your husband or your partner, is that you don't have to sleep at the hospital. You have your baby, you have him in your bed, you can take a nap immediately. You just don't ever have to leave your house, and your poor husband doesn't have to sleep on the tiny couch or tiny chair in the crammed hospital room. He gets to sleep in your king bed right with you and with your sweet newborn baby. So my husband is so lucky, and he's never had to sleep in a hospital. So those are the reasons why I personally choose home birth. I just think it's so much more low risk and so much safer and more comfortable and just a better overall experience. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you hit that button below, and you guys have a wonderful day.